Alright, today, in the Flash reorder, we're going to talk about the run and the whole era of DC that made me into a comic fan. Let's go. And welcome back, everyone. So, we are now diving into a whole new era of DC Comics. This is now the New 52 era. This was a big reboot for DC that launched back in 2011. They decided, you know what, things aren't doing so well with us, like things are kind of all over the place, let's just restart over again in classic DC fashion. So they decided to restart everything. Everything's got a new number one, everything starts fresh. So as you can see, though, in the New 52, there is some good stuff to it, but this plan does get a bit messy here and there. Like, for example, Batman looks like he's like in his mid-20s, yet all four Robins are around. So there's issues like that. But outside of that, yeah. So I figured, like, before we get into Flash's portion of this, I would just talk about the New 52 a bit real quick. And I will say, for as messy as it is, this is kind of a special place for me because this is actually where I started reading comics. Like, this is how I got into it. So, in a way, for New 52, their plan did kind of work because that was one of their pitches, was to try to get new readers. Hello, I'm here. So yeah. So it did work. It did bring in some new readers. Like, old readers weren't that big fans of it. Some were, but some weren't. But yeah. But anyway, so yeah. So I'm just going to dive really quick into a bit of the Justice League New 52 Omnibus by Jeff Johns and Jim Lee. And let me just open up this bad boy real quick. All right. So that's the spine. And you can see Superman and Wonder Woman making out. It's a whole new era, man. So yeah, so basically everything's like restarted from the beginning. Cool fact, that's Jim Lee's signature. So yeah, everything has basically restarted for the DC Universe. So things are going to be different, particularly when we talk about Flash. But one of the starting points with the New 52 was this book here, Justice League New 52, Justice League Origin, by Jeff Johns and Jim Lee, an all-star team doing this. So basically the basis for what this era started is that it started here with this book, the Justice League Origin, the formation of the Justice League, which would happen in a period of 5 years. So we would have this book here, and then we do a time jump of 5 years, and that would be the start of everyone else's books. So like, that's where like Flash would start, that's where Green Lantern would start, Batman, Superman, everyone. Overall, I still say this is a pretty cool story. I do like this. I've always actually kind of said that this book, in a way, particularly this story, I've always said that this almost feels like this is like the Avengers movie before the Avengers movie, kind of the same plot where all of them are getting together, they have to stop a big alien invasion. And here we go. Here's Barry. Yes, Barry is the main Flash. We'll talk about Wally in a bit and where everyone else is when we get there. But yeah, if you just wanted to show that off a bit, show off some Jim Lee Flash. Here you go. But yeah, all right. So now let's talk about Flash. All right. So this is the Flash Omnibus, specifically the Flash New 52 Omnibus, and it is the Flash by Francis Manapul and Brian Buccellato. Yes, Francis Manapul, who will be doing the art in this run, and it is spectacular, beautiful art. But as well, he's actually the writer in this, so it's actually kind of cool, because last run, he was the artist with Jeff Johns, and now he's going to be doing a double duty. He's going to be writing, he's going to be doing the art, as well as co-writing with Brian Buccellato. So let's craft this bad boy up, because of course we don't want to be savages, and open this with the dust cover, so give us a sec. We got this nice wrap around. Also, fun fact about this, I mean, I won't get as sentimental and as emotional as I was in the last episode, but this one will be kind of up here for me, and this will be a kind of bit going back to nostalgia, because, like I said, New 52 is where I started, but also one thing that's cool about this is actually my first ever omnibus I ever bought. And that's also where I looked up online and learned the ability to stretch spines and how necessary that is. But alright. Here we go. The Flash, Hanbus, Francis Manapul Brian Buccellato. Let's do this. We're jumping into New 52, baby. Iconic cover. I actually got that cover signed by Francis Manapul. I went to a con years ago and met him there. Francis Manapul, hands down, my favorite artist. But anyway, so we're gonna start off here where Barry's at this science expo, this science demonstration, and he's on a date. However, it's not with Iris West. It's actually with a new partner, Patty Spivot. Yes, that's already the first immediate change that you see here of how things are different. So Barry and Iris, in this continuity, or at least how things start, is they kind of started out on like a date, didn't work out well, and now he ends up with this chick Patty, and you'll see his and Iris relationships form later on, but for right now, yeah, they're not together in this. And also in this we meet this character, Darwin Elias. He is this advanced scientist. Almost kind of reminds me of like Dr. Wells in a way from the show, but yeah, I gotta say Darwin Elias. He is a really really cool character with a lot of potential as a great villain, and it kind of sucks because after this run, no one really picks up on him. But yeah, look at this beautiful art. The Flash. DC Comics proudly presents The Flash. And one thing that's cool about this, too, that I like is that in each issue, because one of the things that happened was, for the first issue of every New 52 comic, it would say DC Comics proudly presents whatever character, like Batman, Superman, The Flash. But Brian and Francis liked it so much that they were just like, well, that's kind of cool. Why don't we just do that for every issue? So they were actually the only ones that did it for every issue. That introduction. And one cool thing, too, is as you'll see throughout the series and how creative Manapul is with his art, is you're going to see different ways of how he spells out the Flash title. But anyway, so what's going on here is we got a bunch of these terrorist guys who are trying to steal this genome recoder, and Flash is out to stop them. He doesn't fully succeed, unfortunately, because one of the issues is that he cannot fly, and he goes down with this one guy. He sends the guy through a window, and he vibrates through the street, and there's Iris to meet him. We do find out, however, though, that the person who Barry sent flying to the window is actually an old friend of his named Manuel, and unfortunately, that Manuel died on impact in the through the window, which Barry did not mean to, but of course that's not going to be the case, and we'll explain more of what happened. So anyway, we have this whole new status quo now. Barry's back. He's working at the CCPD. He's dating Patty Spivot. Iris is there as well. Then we got Forrest. We got Director Singh. This is one of my favorite shots. Again, I love the art here. But eventually what does happen is Manuel shows up. Manuel's alive. How's that possible? Well, much like in the flashback that we saw earlier. Hold on, I'll go back to that. Yeah. Manuel was exactly the most, I don't want to say polite, but let's just say he was a troublemaker, and him and Barry would be constantly on the run, including running away from these guys who Manuel tried to steal their girlfriends from. And just like in the past, now we're back in the present, and again, we are being chased. Who are we being chased by? We're being chased by those mysterious guys who robbed the Science Expo earlier. Barry eventually escapes. He turns into the Flash, only to be confronted by a whole bunch of Manuels. So these guys are basically, they're the group known as Mob Rule. And what they are is they are all clones of Manuel. Manuel eventually, at one point, he decided to become a CIA agent for reasons I will explain later. But basically, what they end up doing is at one point he becomes the best operative in the world. He basically becomes James Bond. But one of the reasons that he wants to do is because he wants to, like, avenge the death of his... Oh, shoot, I forgot. Someone in his family. I think it's either his father or his brother. I believe it's his brother. I think it's his brother. Basically, he wants to avenge a family member. So he trades and does all that in the CIA just to make sure that he can do that. But he becomes so good at the CIA that this one government agency finds him, and they use him to try to make this, like, super soldier formula where they make him regenerate limbs, and we'll get more into how that connects with the clones. But anyway, yeah, so look at this. How cool is this with the art here, with the Flash? Think fast. And we get to see the early stages of the cosmic treadmill that will be built on later. So one thing that's cool is that, yes, Darwin Elias, I mean, unfortunately, I did give it away accidentally that, yes, he does become a villain, but he does start out as an ally at first. First in the Flash, he kind of, like, helps him out with certain things, because the thing that's different about this run is, again, it's a whole new start. So Barry's the only Flash. There's no Wally, there's no Jay, there's no Bart, and the Speed Force does exist, and Barry actually does name it the Speed Force, but he's not entirely sure what it is, or he's never experienced being inside of it yet or anything. And one of the powers that he does figure out too, which is pretty cool, is the Speed Mind power, where he actually foresees certain events that could happen ahead of time, and can figure out like oh, I could do this or I could do that. Like he can think like super quickly. And he sees all these disasters that he could prevent, and he uses that to, like, set this up to basically save someone's life. And you get to see all play in motion, him stopping a robbery, everything being set up here. A guy avoiding getting hit by a car by picking up $1 that Barry left. Really cool stuff. And again, oh my god, this art. Look how beautiful this art is. So as we get more into the mystery of Mob Rule and Manuel, Flash at one point, he does discover the facility of where Manuel is being experimented on, even though it's been replaced by a pig farm. Pigs are a connection, though. But one thing that does happen is at one point, Mob Rule, what they're trying to do, because the thing that's going on with the clones is the clones are, like, dying. And they're dying with how much they've been made. So basically, if this one guy was the first clone, he's going out first. So they're slowly dying, they're slowly degenerating, and they're trying to figure out a cure for it. And one thing, what they do is they try to use this power to... They use this machine, the DM recoder, to try to, like, recode their bodies. And unfortunately, though, what happens, though, is that it causes an entire massive blackout in the Gem Cities, the Central City and Keystone City. So it's going to be a blackout for a good couple of issues. But however, we do get to probably one of the coolest moments in the book, where because of the electromagnetic pulse, because of all that, a plane is going down. Plane has no power, it's going down, it's going to crash into the bridge between Keystone and Central City. So Flash has to think quick. What does Barry do? He phases into the plane. And one of the things that's cool is that Manapul talks about, or he writes that he talks about, that one of the first experiences that he had with vibrating was he drank, like, a cup of coffee, and it, like, made him, like, so hyper that he basically phased through the floor while he was at work one day and had to, like, stop himself. Hence why now he doesn't drink coffee. But anyway, going back to this is a cool moment where he vibrates the plane, and it phases right through the bridge. And I thought this was so cool, especially years later when they actually adapted this scene on the show. I almost cried, honestly, when I saw that. Like, it was so cool. But okay, so the whole thing with Manuel is they keep experimenting with him. They keep trying to cut out his different limbs because the formula that's supposed to do is basically make him regenerate the limbs with pig's blood. That's where pigs come in. But one of the things that was going on was when he was being experimented, when all these different body parts like hands, limbs, legs, whatever, all this stuff of Manuel's was being like tossed to the side and like thrown into a pile, and from that pile came these clones. The clones were able to regenerate through the body parts. So now what they need, though, is they need the actual Manuel, because they need his actual DNA to see if there's a way that they can help him regenerate and stay alive. Manuel, of course, wants nothing to do with them because he's irresponsible, but also, like, he wants nothing to do with them. He's just like, no, this isn't my problem. But meanwhile, in Iron Heights, yes, Iron Heights is here, Iris actually gets a exclusive interview with Captain Cold, who, if you see here, Captain Cold seems he's got some powers. What's that about? We'll talk about that in a second. And there's the inner cover of the book. And one thing that's also going on is in the Central City Badlands, this like desert area that's like further out away from the city. A lot of these weird things keep popping up, different machines and stuff from different time periods, like including like an old World War One like tank. Like it's like all this like crazy stuff is like appearing, and we don't know why. Elias though does have a theory, and he thinks it may have something to do with the Flash. While that's going on, though, he also ends up being Trickster, who Trickster actually is Axel Walker, so there's no James Jesse right now. But Axel Walker, he gets kicked out of the Rogues, and he's with this, like, other group that he teamed up with. And Manuel was kidnapped by Mob Rule, and Iris and Barry go to save him. Patty and Barry go to save him. Skip around here a bit. One thing that does happen though is Barry actually sacrifices himself for Patty and Manuel to get out. He takes a bullet to the head, but it like grazes right through him. He's able to vibrate it out, but of course Patty and Manuel think he's dead, and that's when Manuel finally decides, you know what? You killed my best friend. You killed the one good person in my life. Screw you guys. So that's when he finally starts to fight. Though he gets kidnapped by them anyway. Again, man, this art is so beautiful. I love this art so much. Now Flash has got to save Manuel. And one thing that's also going on too is because when Flash vibrated through the bridge, now because of all the blackouts and because of that, they're not entirely sure if the bridge is stable or not, because they're not aware of what Flash really did. So the bridge between the cities is now closed, so people are like freaking out because they like can't get home. Until Flash does come and sends some some rescue boats that have some like supplies and stuff for the blackout, and he uses his slipstream to do that. Again, so cool. Wow, it says like the Flash like that in the ice. And eventually, one of the things that does happen is they recruit Dr. Elias to help out Manuel and Mob Rule to see if they could try to help him out. And of course, the experiment doesn't go fully right, and because of that, Barry has to stop it. He has to stop this like beam from like coming. He makes it to a tornado, gets it out of the city, gets it out of the way. But because of that, the clones end up dying. They all die because they ran out of time. And now Manuel's like mad. He's like pissed about it. He tries to kill Elias. He takes down Flash. Now all of a sudden he cares about them like they're like his brothers or something. It's weird. And like he even has this moment like, we are Mob Rule. We are survivors. We are Mob Rule. We will never hear from Manuel after this story. Yeah, I mean, it's an okay first story. But anyway, now we're going to talk about Captain Cold and what the Rogues are doing in this new reboot. And why does Captain Cold have powers? So we jump into this story now, where we get the confrontation with Flash and Captain Cold. This is kind of cool because this is one of those, like, stories that, like, shows, like, different time jumps and, like, this is how we got here moments. So yeah, so I'm sure you're all wondering, like, why is Captain Cold basically like Mr. Freeze now, or like Iceman? Like, how does he have all these powers? We're gonna get more into that in the second story with the Rogues, but first answer I can give you right now is that yes, all the Rogues do have powers. How? I'll explain. But this is pretty cool too. Elias ends up making this, Dr. Elias ends up making this big treadmill for the Flash to siphon off some of his Speed Force energy, because all the different portals that have been happening, and supposedly the blackout, which some people think Flash still caused, even though it was Mob Rule, but whatever. But one of the things is that Flash is running so fast that he is supposedly making all these vortexes through time and sending out all these different instruments like the tank into our time. So Elias made this basically this meter for Flash just to counter how much speed force he's using. And one of the things that he's going to do is he makes this treadmill for him so he can run off the speed and siphon the Speed Force out. So basically, he's making all this, like, Speed Force energy that he's going to use later on for himself. But yeah, so basically, Patty and Barry, they're on this, well, I don't want to say double date, because Iris doesn't have a date, but they're basically meeting up with Iris for lunch on this boat. Captain Cold invades. Why is Captain Cold so pissed at the Flash, though? Because normally he doesn't really go after him unless he's got a reason. Well, the reason is that Lisa is in the hospital. His sister Lisa's in the hospital. She's got a coma. And the thing that could help keep her alive was ruined in the hospital thanks to the blackout, a.k.a. thanks to Flash. Yeah, it's still caused by Mob Rule, but we're going to play Flash anyway. Because, of course, like I said, this is still new, so it's like Central City does, like, they like Flash, but they're not fully trusting in him yet. Like, there's no Flash museum yet, let's just say that. I gotta say, I do like Stark's look here. This new look he's got. And look how cool that is. That it spells out like that Flash with the chain and the wood. And this is his meter that now he's completely ignored because he's trying to save Patty. And because of that, he uses his back speed. Here comes another Speed Force portal. And it ends up sucking in the boat, as well as Iris, along with like two other people that she ends up meeting on the boat, who gets sucked into Speed Force. But things do work out in a way, not fully, but, well, there's two problems. One, because, of course, people don't know Barry's the Flash. People assume that Barry's also in that portal as well, or presumed missing. Basically, presumed killed. So, Barry's kind of like, well, shit, I can't be Barry right now, I'm stuck as the Flash. But one of the things that at least does work out is, as Barry's using this treadmill Elias made for him to siphon out Speed Force energy, he tells Elias to use one of the Speed Force batteries to give to the hospital to save Elise Stark's life. But while he does that, Elias is like, "Wait, where are you going?" And Barry decides, I'm gonna try to run into the Speed Force to find Iris and the others. Which, doing this, awakes and makes the guerrillas of Gorilla City notice this act. And Lisa is saved. However, she still hates her brother Stark for doing that. We get one little hint here about some of Captain Singh's life, where Patty sees this thing of flutes, and she goes, "Oh, that's interesting." And Singh goes, "Oh, that's not mine. That's my roommate's." Talk about that in a sec. But anyway, now Flash is now in the Speed Force, and he meets this new character named Turbine. Turbine is actually a old World War I pilot who got stuck in the Speed Force accidentally years ago. So he's been there for years. And one of the things we actually do find out is that Turbine was constantly making all these portals and stuff to try to get out of the Speed Force. So, as opposed to Barry thinking, "Oh, it's my speed that's causing the portals," no, it's Turbine. But one of the things that's cool is we get to see it in the Speed Force is we get to see all these memories specifically to Barry, because Barry is basically considered to be like the anchor of the Speed Force. Like, the Speed Force started with him. And Barry, in a way, him running, like, he's basically like the Speed Force's, like, vent, where, like, his running exhausts, like, the energy of the Speed Force, so it doesn't, like, overblow or go overcritical. But as we're here, we're seeing the funeral for Barry, and Director Singh talks to his roommate, aka his boyfriend, Harley Rafferway, the Pied Piper. This is where he finds out. Turbine loses his shit. And eventually, within the fight with Turbine, he does end up saving Iris. Iris does find his little wing that he ends up losing in the fight. But he ends up being teleported. And he lands directly in Gorilla City, where the new king of the gorillas, King Grodd, has just murdered his father and is now the new king, and believes that he is the chosen one of the Speed Force. And look who just happened to drop in. Now, one of the things I think is cool that Manapul does, that he adds this kind of like flashback between Barry and his mother, where they actually got attacked by like a gorilla. I won't say who it is yet, but I'll give you a hint. It's not Grodd. But I always thought that this was cool. I've always thought that it kind of gave Barry this like fear of gorillas because of that. So I thought that was kind of cool to make Grodd a threat like that. That he always had this like childhood memory. So yeah, so Grodd basically wants his power. The other gorillas tell Flash that he's supposed to be this like messenger for them. It's like in like a prophecy, as you can see, it's written on a cave wall. Flash is eventually able to overcome his fear and able to take down Grodd for now. Grodd's going to play a big part of this run later, but for now, he's able to take him down, especially where Grodd stupidly caves the wall in. And Barry more or less lets the other gorillas go and tells them, like, hey, look, like, I know I'm part of the Speed Force thing, but I have nothing to do with you all. You don't have to worship me. It's fine. It's cool. Meanwhile, that's all going on, we get the introduction of Wonder Wizard, who is now, instead of Mark Martin, he is Marco Martin, which is an interesting change. Basically same character, except now he's Spanish. So, okay. No, got nothing against that. One of the other things that happens, though, is as Barry finally comes back from the Speed Force and all the stuff going on within the last few issues, he finds Dr. Elias leading a mob against the Flash. So, yeah, that's when Dr. Elias does turn. Gonna skip over here a bit. This is basically Wonder Wizard's story. Like, he's got a story involving, like, the mob and how, like, his brother ends up getting killed or something. Not too important, but yeah, that's Wonder Wizard's introduction. Though one of the other things that happens in this is we get to see the debut of New 52 Golden Glider, where Lisa is basically in a coma, but she's able to project, like, an astral form of herself. So that's how she's now the Golden Glider. She glides. She's basically like a ghost. So that's her version. And now we also get the New 52 version of Heatwave, where he is completely burned. He's not in a suit. He's completely burned, and he's got, like, an exhaust port for the fire that he can just power up anytime he wants to. No gun. But while this is going on, so Barry, of course, is still considered to be dead, so he's got to figure out what to do about that and try to get out of that. But for now, he decides, well, you know what? I got this. I'm considered dead right now. Let me figure out what's going on here. I'll get this other job to find out what's going on with the Rogues, because one of the things that they hear is he hears that, like, all these, like, arsons are being started, so of course he naturally thinks it's Heatwave. So he goes to this bar that's basically where all the villains go, and what's cool is that he uses that as a way to, like, get, like, a new job as a bartender to keep a tab on them, which I think is pretty cool. Oh, one other thing I should mention too, that Wonder Wizard arc, I should go back a bit too. Yeah, perfect, right here. There is a moment where Barry was going to tell Patty that he is the Flash, but Patty basically just tells how she, like, hates the Flash and wants nothing to do with him, and that just makes Barry go, yep, nope, not going to tell her. Now we get this whole rogue battle between Start and Heatwave. Because one of the things is that that's going on is basically most of the rogues kind of hate Len right now, because Len is the one that decided to give them powers, and a lot of the side effects of them getting powers didn't really work out for them. In the case of Heatwave's basically, like, on fire, and it's like, yeah, no, I don't want to live like that. Like, one of the things that actually happens with Wonder Wizard is that Wonder Wizard, the Wonder is controlled by his emotions. So one of the things that does go on is Lisa decides I'm going to lead the Rogues now, because Len, you screwed up with this whole power thing. So I'm taking over, I'm leading things now. And one of the things we're going to do is we're going to kill Darwin Elias. Why? Because he's the one that helped Cold get them their powers. And also Piper's here. Yes, in this new continuity, Piper is he was a rogue briefly, but he didn't really felt like he fit in, and he just kind of became more of a vigilante. And one of the things that's cool that's going to be mentioned in a series later on that I'll talk about is they'll explain why he didn't really fit in the rogues, but he still kind of considers himself one, if that makes sense. But yes, there is this moment where Elias is giving this speech about how, like, I saved the city, and I'm great, and I'm this, and blah. And there is a moment where Lisa puts a piece of glass in his body, in an artery specifically, to kill him. Why glass? If you notice, there hasn't been a rogue I haven't talked about yet. And we're going to find out right now because one of the things that the rogues end up doing is they hijacked this new monorail that Elias was building that was going to be running on Speed Force energy from the Speed Force batteries that Flash siphoned, and now Elias is basically taking the credit all for himself to use, which Flash even says later on, he does confront about it. He says, I don't care that you took credit for it. I just want to know why you're smearing my name. And Elias just like, oh, experimentation. Just for the hell of it. Just want to see what happens. It's like, oh, you thought we were actually friends? Yeah, no, that was just all part of my experiment. Yeah, Elias is a dick. But anyway, yeah, the monorail goes through the building. And yes, it goes through the glass building, where it gets transported to, you all guessed it, the mirror world. So there's just a cool brief story here that kind of concludes this whole arc in the Flash annual. One thing that's cool about this was actually my first annual, because again, this is when I was like learning about what comics were. I'm like, oh, what's an annual? Like, what's a tie-in? What's this? Like, what's a crossover? Like, this is basically kind of like my way of getting into comics and finding out what stuff was. So yeah, this is basically the first Flash stuff I was following as it was coming out. But anyway, so Barry talks about this one story that he and his dad went to go watch these race car drivers kind of like break this record on this flatline place, and they never break the record. But anyway, point is that it's a place that Barry likes going to where he could kind of experiment with his speed because there's no road, it's all open. He could go as fast as he could go. The problem is that sometimes you can't go too fast because then you do stuff like going to the Speed Force or possibly changing time. Meanwhile, all this is going on, we get to see the Rogues' origins, and we get to see them with the Rogues with their original weapons, classic looks. And this displays a story of how they get their powers, and basically is finally getting sick of like Flash interfering with them. So he meets up with Elias. Elias says, I can offer you this. So they end up using this machine, this gene recoder, same thing used from the Mob Rule, and they place their weapons on it, and it changes their bodies, it changes their DNA. And specifically in the case of Lisa, who didn't have powers, it just throws her out and gives her a big coma, big concussion. Which worries Mirror Master because, yes, in this new timeline, Mirror Master and Lisa started dating. And it's also raining because Weather Wizard's upset because, like I mentioned before, like one of the side effects of like Weather Wizard's powers is that he can his powers are controlled by his emotions. So basically, if he wants rain to happen, he has to basically get depressed. And of course, the biggest side effect is Mirror Master, because Mirror Master, while there is a mirror world, the problem is that he's stuck there and he can't get out. And one thing that happens during all this too is they eventually do find, because Barry at one point does bring back Turbine, and he ends up bringing to Patty, who tells Patty, like, I can help you find Barry Allen, which of course Patty's like, oh my god, what? Because she still thinks Barry's dead. And there is this brief moment where Cold and Flash do team up to try and take down the Rogues. But it doesn't fully work, of course, because Cold does turn his back on him. And he ends up getting kicked into the mirror world, where he confronts Mirror Master, where basically Mirror Master is basically God in the mirror world. And while eventually the Rogues do take down the Flash, before they can fully celebrate, a whole bunch of yellow pods start coming down throughout the city. And we find out it's a guerrilla invasion from Gorilla City. Grodd is here to take over, and he's after the Flash. And we're going to go into the next story arc, Guerrilla Warfare. So before we get into this next story, the Guerrilla Invasion, Guerrilla Warfare, we're going to take a bit of an interlude, and we're going to go into the Flash number 0. Because at the time, DC was doing this thing where occasionally they would have these different theme months in the New 52. So their first theme month that they did was 0 month, where all the books at the time got like a 0 issue, and more or less gave a lot of the characters like these new origins and showing like how they got to be where they were, because a lot of them kind of just started like where they currently were, and we really didn't get much origins, even though these are like supposed to be like new starting points. They do work as starting points, but they basically start a lot of them just as like, here they are, here they are as the hero with their powers and all that. This was an opportunity to give everyone some like, let's backtrack and see what happened between those 5 years between Justice League and the current timeline. And one of the things we get to see Barry talk to his father, because I don't think I mentioned this in the last episode. If I didn't, I apologize, but one of the other side effects of Barry's mother being killed is his father is framed for the murder. It is believed that his father is the main suspect, and they go more into detail about why that could be the case. And also, just to point out too, again, because this is a new timeline and a new continuity, until things change and merge, comics are complicated. But as of right now, in this moment, as I'm talking, Barry has no idea about Fawn yet. He doesn't know that Fawn killed his mother. He has no idea of that yet. He just believes his mother was killed. But he knows for a fact it was not his father. So he still does want to become a CSI and prove his father's innocence. I'm sorry, I glossed over this. This is the Lightning, the origin, the new standard, the new way of it. And we get more of these flashbacks. And one of the things we do find out is that Barry didn't exactly have a perfect childhood in this new timeline. His mother and father were actually, Henry and Nora were actually going through some issues, and they were going through a divorce. And Nora was actually seeing this guy named Daryl Fry, who is a member of the Central City Police Department, who basically becomes Barry's guardian later on. So kind of Joe West before Joe West. I do love this, though. I love this moment. Again, one of the reasons I love Barry so much. What does he actually do? Like, when they're about to discuss... his parents are going to have a discussion about the divorce. His mother goes, "You can tell me all about it later, Barry. Why don't you go to the bookstore for a little while?" And he actually asks, Can I get a comic?" Again, I love that Barry Allen's a comic geek just like us. So more or less in this issue, we basically get to see the newer version of the origin. Not much has changed. It's just he's in the coma for a while. We get to learn more about Daryl. We get to see how he creates the suit this time. But one of the more important things in this is we meet this one character named Daniel. I won't say his last name yet, but his name is Daniel, and one of the things that does happen is he ends up running into the Flash on one of the Flash's first days of superheroing, where he's trying to rob a bank. And I do like this moment too, while all this is going on. At one point, where Daniel is getting like arrested, and this commotion happens, his Barry's father Henry does try to escape, and Barry's just to sell backdoor like, "No, Dad, you're not that way." And we get this triumph moment where he goes, "I am the Flash. I'm Barry Allen, the fastest man alive. I am the Flash." But anyway, that's the zero issue. Now we will talk about this new. We will talk about the next story, Guerrilla Warfare. My favorite arc in this run, and probably my all-time favorite Grodd story, honestly. So basically, the guerrillas are invading Central City. The Rogues are like, what do we do? We got Flash, because of course they took out Flash in the annual. So now it's like, yeah, we need your help, bud. All this is going on. Grodd's sitting on us for a wait for Flash, because of course he wants Flash, because Grodd wants the power of the Speed Force. He believes the Speed Force is his calling, his birthright, his destiny. And then we get this sick moment that will carry on for the next few years in The Flash, where Trickster tries to basically make friends or make alliance with Grodd, and he extends his hand out and specifically says, "Someone, excuse me, you could use a local liaison to show you around here and get you in and out of anywhere you want to go. Someone who knows this place like the back of his hand. For the right price, I gladly offer no help, or my help, excuse me. What do you say?" And Grodd goes, "Like the back of your hand? You know nothing!" And rips Axel's arm off. Rips his whole arm off. So Axel, from this point on, for the rest of history, will now have a metal arm. And while all this is going on, while all this madness is going on, Daniel, who eventually got parole and got out of jail, is trying to find his sister, Iris. Yes, so this character's name is Daniel West. At one point, Flash does end up working with the Rogues a bit, because the Rogues do decide at the end of the day, it's like, hey, we're not trying to take over the world here. Like, we don't want the city destroyed by gorillas. Eventually, does find out that Grodd is siphoning off some Speed Force energy, which we'll see later on how that's being done. So he's basically just as fast as Flash, which is really bad, because he's, of course, stronger than Flash, as we see here. And we get this sick moment where Grodd tries to slam like a taxi cab on Barry, and Barry just phases through it, and then he like punches him, and then he sees like his armor start to break, because it's like, oh no, Grodd's that strong with the Speed Force. So yeah, so this is basically what's going on here. So they have this elder gorilla tied up to this pole, this tower that's siphoning off all this like Speed Force energy from the experiment that they created, and that Speed Force energy, because it's being drawn from Barry, and because the Speed Force energy is fluxing constantly in Central City because of Flash and all of his running and some of the energy batteries that Elias made. So they stole some of the energy batteries and they're siphoning it off and giving that power to Grodd. So Grodd has some Speed Force energy, which makes Grodd basically nearly unstoppable now, or King Grodd as he's called here. And we do find out later on that this was supposed to be foretold, or that this was meant to happen, because years ago, another gorilla tries to tap into the Speed Force and uses that ability to transport to Earth, but he travels back a little too early. He travels back in time, but he travels back a little too early. And one of the things that he is trying to do is he is trying to warn the humans about Grodd. But he comes back a little too early, and some of the humans see him, and he gets upset, and he attacks this little boy and his mother. This is Solivar. Solivar was the gorilla that attacked Barry and his mother. And then we get this great moment at the end. And again, you see the Flash. We get this great moment at the end where Grodd is about to kill Barry. He's got him on the ropes. And Patty sees this and sees Barry unmasked. And this is how she finds out he's the Flash. And just as Grodd is about to go for the killing blow, Solivar comes in and takes the brunt of it for him. So Barry's out. Solivar's out. Solivar's not dead. I thought he was dead. I remember being really upset about this. And I remember at the time when this happened. So, when this happened, I think around the time the issues were coming out, there was like a delay or something. And I remember calling my comic store and being like, so when is Flash? I think it was like 14 or 15 at that point. Like, what does Flash 15 come out? They're like, oh, it's delayed for like another like couple weeks. And I'm like, what do you mean delayed? What's delay? Like I was still new to comics, so I was just like, what do you mean? Like, I gotta see what happens to Barry. But yeah, man, I love this story. So yeah, so this is Grodd eventually going to another Speed Force battery because his energy is being drained. Barry's passed out back at home with Daryl Fry and Turbine. Patty's with him. And one of the things that's going on is that when Barry is out, Barry's actually seeing all these different versions of different timelines. See what could possibly happen in the result of this whole conflict. Like, what could he do? If you're a fan of the Avengers movies, this is kind of similar to what Doctor Strange did in Infinity War to basically see Endgame. I don't think Barry sees like 17 million like Doctor Strange did, but he does see enough where he realizes that no matter what he does, if he confronts Grodd, somehow it's either going to lead to his death or Patty's death. So what does he decide to do? He decides to keep himself in. He wakes up. He's like, Patty! And we get this little bit of flashback where we get to see Barry and Iris on their one date. And it doesn't go well because she has files of Daniel, and basically Barry takes it as like, oh, wait, you were just using me to try to get your brother out of jail. And that was kind of Iris's intention, but also Iris does legitimately like Barry and thought, oh, this is a good opportunity, because we'll see later on in a flashback, Daniel does tell her to like try to like hook up with Barry basically to get him out, and Iris is kind of hesitant about that, and she goes along with it, but she also really uses it as the opportunity to try to get to know Barry, and Barry fortunately does find out when he sees the files, and that doesn't go well, and that's where things stop with them. For now. Grodd going off with the Flash giving himself to the guerrillas. Meanwhile, the rogues are continuing to help Central City, and one of the things that they're doing is they're transporting people to the mirror world to keep them safe. Of course, we find out later on in another story what the rogues were actually doing, which is, yes, they're keeping them safe, but for a price. So now we do get this moment with Barry, and he is just silent. He's just meditating. He's just doing his own thing. Grodd's like, you're pathetic. You gave up. The Speed Force belongs to me, not you. And he goes to kill Barry once and for all, but then Barry is able to stop his spear because he's using all of his energy. His Speed Force energy. He's basically doing what Sullivan did to get to travel between Gorilla City and to Central City. He's meditating. He's basically embracing the Speed Force. Embracing his power. And he ends up taking himself and Grodd there to where he can now take Grodd down while also saving Iris and the other people that Iris ends up being along the Speed Force who got missing in that boat. I'll get more into them in the next story arc. But Grodd first is like, it's like he's feeling Speed Force energy. He's like, this is great, like, you fool, blah, blah, blah. And then Barry's like, well, here's the difference, though, is that, again, you keep saying you're the king. Here in the Speed Force, I am king. I love that cover. That cover also, Manapul's time for me as well. And now this is the finale, the big confrontation. Barry's big comeback. He gets to kick Grodd's ass. It's awesome. But there's actually another thing that's going on too, because one of the other things that the Elder is doing as well, that gorilla in the football stadium, what he's doing is he's making this kind of like smoke screen that's outside the city, where it's making it seem like this. He's projecting this image around to make the city seem like it's destroyed when it's not, and it's basically preventing the army from coming in. Because basically, if the army came in, they could just take down the guerrillas, no problem. The army's not coming into the city though because they think it's either destroyed or there's like smoke or gas or something's going on. The guerrillas are preventing them from coming in, which eventually does get stopped, and here comes the army to finally take them down. And the guerrillas end up eventually running away and leaving, while Barry's still taking down Grodd and the Speed Force. Grodd, you take the mammoth, and I'll take the pretty one. How you doing, Iris? Certainly took your time, didn't you? Love this moment with them. But yeah, eventually, one of the things that he does do is he keeps Grodd locked up in the Speed Force while he's able to take Iris and the other guys out of it, and finally rescues them, which resolves everything for the most part, including resolving Barry being dead, because now they can say, "Oh, well, the Flash saved me." And then we get this moment here with Elias, where he's pissed. He goes, "Okay, Flash. Time. Now, let's get serious." We don't know what that means yet. But yeah, now Everyone's reunited. Everyone's home. Barry's back. Barry's back with Patty. But something happens a month later. We see this cracking. This rock, this crack. He keeps saying to move forward, which is one of the key phrases of the book, is move forward. That was what the first volume was called. But it's time he learned sometimes you gotta go in reverse. This is the new 52 Reverse Flash. So who is the Reverse Flash? That's the big new mystery here. Well, while we get to that, one of the other things that goes on is, so I mentioned before that Iris met a couple of these people in the Speed Force who were kidnapped there as well. The effects of them being in the Speed Force actually gave some of those people, with the exception of Iris, some Speed Force abilities. And two of the guys, Gomez and Albert, two random guys, decide, well, now we're going to be superheroes. And Flash is like, no, you're not. This is one of them, Gomez. Or as he likes to call himself, Sprint. Nice name. And this is Albert, who becomes like a tech whiz guy, and one of his abilities that he can do, because they get like different abilities basically. Sprint is basically a speedster, but with like enhanced strength. While Albert is one of the things that we find out later on what he can do is he can make machines get more enhanced with the Speed Force, which will come in handy in a bit. And now this is kind of cool now too. There's a moment here. So now that Patty knows that Barry's the Flash, she's kind of like accepting of it. And there is a moment here where Barry's not fully back on the police force yet, so he can't exactly like investigate cases. So there's at one point where they're talking about the case of like this I forgot what the case was, but I think it's an explosive or something. Yeah, it's explosive. It has something to do with like Trickster being like a murderer, which he's not. We find out later on who it is, but it's not Trickster. But yeah, there's a moment where Patty basically drops the file for Barry, so Barry can just grab it and run. So more or less, he's basically trying to help Trickster in his case because Trickster gets like framed for murder. But while this is going on, Trickster's new crew, the Outlanders, are trying to basically form a prison break, which Barry's going to stop, of course, but there is this brief moment where he all of a sudden completely loses his powers. This is a pretty cool story. This is a cool one-shot story where Barry doesn't have his powers for the issue. And what happens is there's this book called Dial H, where this character has like this like magical phone where he can dial it, and it randomly gives him like a random superhero's powers. And at that issue specifically, when this issue was coming out, it gave him the Flash's powers. So this guy basically borrowed the Flash's powers while Barry doesn't have any. And one of the details I like here, cool, that's cool that I like, is that it says here DC Comics proudly presents Barry Allen, because he's not the Flash in this issue. So I like that little detail. But yeah, that's the moment here where Albert is able to use Captain Cold's gun to energize even more, and that helps him take out all the Outlanders. Because one of the things that Barry does decide to do is he goes to the evidence lockup and basically takes the rogues' weapons to use them against the Outlanders. Until eventually he does get his powers back. Because again, whatever the Dial H guy needed them, they're done. I remember getting that issue thinking like, okay, is this going to be like a crossover or something? It wasn't. But the issue does end where Albert ends up getting killed. He gets thrown off a building by the Reverse Flash. And the issue starts out where Gomez's girlfriend, who also was one of the people in the Speed Force with Iris, she gets killed as well. Well, by Reverse Flash. Yeah, one interesting thing that does happen in this issue is, first of all, I love this moment where he seems like a train. Again, the art is so beautiful by Manapul. I love this moment where Barry poses for photos and he goes, "But first, smile, Barry. This is part of the job." And Barry is doing the test on I forgot her name. Marissa's body. To find out how exactly she got killed, and she's got all these like cuts, but they're not from like knives or anything natural. And at one point, Forrest does bring Barry this one random big spear that Albert created before he was killed, that apparently it could be touched by Speed Force energy, hence why Barry's the only one that can activate it. And at one point, he basically, it shows like, it basically acts as like a Speed Force camera. Not really, it's Speed Force powered camera that shows like playback, and Barry basically gets to see the playback of how Albert is killed, and one of the things that he sees is he sees the Flash symbol in reverse. Again, Barry's not aware of what the Reverse Flash is yet, but he is aware of Kid Flash. Nope, this is not Bart, this is not Wally, this is something else. I won't get too much into it. This is some other character, but more or less, this issue is basically just the two of them meeting up, and Barry being like, "Hey, did you kill that guy?" And Bart being like, "No." And he's like, "Alright, cool, but I'm going to deal with you later because you got my powers and my symbol, and you're from the future, and I need to know what that's about, but I got to deal with this first." More killings from Reverse Flash. But again, still wondering who Reverse Flash is. I remember for sure I thought it was Dr. Elias. And I think we all thought that. He kind of is like the red herring. And we get this cool moment with Barry and Iris because one of the things that he does is that he realizes that because of the Speed Force energy that Reverse Flash is, because they basically do find out eventually that another speedster is killing all these people, and he's killing specifically all the people who were trapped in the Speed Force. And we find out Reverse Flash doing that for a reason, but he can't detect Flash because of his costume. So what he decides to do is he decides to give Iris her own costume so she can't be detected as well. And they end up going running for a bit, which of course makes Patty all like jealous and shit. Patty's like basically anytime these two are like on the same panel, it's just like Patty is basically like, she's like, if Iris talks, Patty's like, oh. Like, even shit like this, she throws where she's like, where Iris is talking about about how cool it is that her and Barry are together, and how maybe it's a little scary because they're gonna like start this new relationship and all that, and find a place to live. Like, basically just having a normal conversation. And Patty goes back, "What's there to be afraid of? Honestly, it's like we were meant to be together." And Iris just like, "Oh, cool." Like, basically just that little jab of basically be like, "I haven't, screw you." That'll change eventually. But yes, we do get this moment with Elias and Reverse Flash. So yes, that means Elias is not the Reverse Flash. Now look at this too. Look at this, the paneling that Manapul does here with the lightning. It's so freaking cool. Again, the art in here is like gorgeous. I mean, the writing's great too for the most part, but like the art's just like fantastic. I love this cover. I got it signed by Manapul as well. So it's the big first confrontation with Flash and this new Reverse Flash. And Elias has this, Dr. Elias has this, like, this big ray gun that can, like, basically, like, reverse, like, it can basically take down a speedster. And there is a moment here where Iris is sitting in the lab by herself and sees a DNA test that's completed to finally figure out who is the Reverse Flash. And when she sees it, she's very shocked. And these two continue to have their big, awesome fight. And I gotta say, I do like this Reverse Flash design. I mean, it's not my favorite design. I still will always love the classic yellow suit. But this is a pretty cool new design. And it makes sense for this version of Reverse Flash, because one of the things with him is that he's not fully powered by the Speed Force. He's kind of like, I would say like he's more like a different version of Zoom or a Hunter. We'll get to that more, because we're going to get to his origin now. But yeah, eventually Reverse Flash does take the gun and he's ready to kill Flash with it. And then Iris says the words, "Daniel, no!" He's like, "Iris?" And Iris ends up taking the blast for Flash, which more or less gets rid of Iris's Speed Force abilities that, yes, she did show off eventually. And Barry's like, "You monster!" And again, look at this panel layout with the lightning, man. It's so cool. I love it. But yes, Daniel does eventually decide, time to flip the switch and put things in reverse. Don't worry, sis. I'll change everything. So the next issue we have in this story, in this reverse story, is issue 23.3. Yes, the point. So this is the next theme month that DC had going on. The difference is that at least it doesn't interrupt the story. This is still considered like basically like part 5 of the story. But basically DC had this thing going on where they had these point issues where all the books focused on all the villains, so they had all these villain theme month issues, and there were 3 for the Flash. This is one of them. We're going to get to the other 2 later on, because it ties into a big event that was going on at DC at the time, which I'll explain more. But for right now, we're still in the Reverse Flash storyline. So, basically we learned that Daniel and Iris didn't exactly have the best childhood. They had a very abusive father, and he was so abusive to Daniel that at one point does end up pushing his father down the stairs and makes him paralyzed. And to this day, he still hates his father, even though he did do that. Like, he always hated his father, like, of how abusive he was. And Daniel's whole goal here is he wants to, like, go back in time. So he basically was killing all the other speedsters to get energy that he could use to go back in time, basically to kill his father, so that so that him and Iris could have like a normal childhood. So basically, Daniel's like a psychopath. So it is kind of similar to Hunter, because one of the things that's cool about him is that he's not fully powered by the Speed Force, as we'll get. I mean, he is, but he's not like a full-out speedster. He is kind of similar to Zoom. So this is basically what happens. So at one point, during the Guerrilla Invasion storyline, the Rogues are taking all these citizens into the Mirrorverse. However, what they are doing is they're basically robbing them, because they're more or less charging them to be like, hey, we saved you, so give us all your stuff. And Daniel tries to fight them. At one point, he gets to a car. He gets to a car, and Cole makes a big ice ramp for him, and basically he loses control of the car, and he ends up slamming into a Speed Force battery, which basically imbues him with Speed Force energy and turns him into this new Reverse Flash. And one of the things that he can do is he can actually reverse time, so he can make things rewind, and fast forward. The best way I can describe it, it's he basically has the time stone. It's basically what his powers are. And one of the things he ends up doing at one point is he takes some of Barry's Speed Force energy to finally get them back in time to this moment. And Daniel, of course, has always hated the Flash because Flash ended up stopping him. Because he's always been trying to make a better life for him and Iris is really, wants nothing to do with him because Daniel left years ago, and Iris is kind of look, you're not doing things right, I want nothing to do with you, and Daniel thinks, I'm going to get this big score by robbing this bank, and of course the Flash does stop him. So one of the reasons why he's always hated the Flash as well. And yeah, this is the moment where Daniel pushes him down the stairs. You can see, yeah, Iris gets beat. But yeah, now we're in this moment where we are back in time. We are back in Iris and Daniel's childhood, and Daniel is ready to kill his and Iris's father. I will say I do like this story, but this is probably one of my biggest problems with it, is the ending gets very rushed, and I'll explain why in a second. But yeah, there's a sad moment where Daniel sees, Iris as a child call him monster, and that, makes him upset and freaks him out. And Barry is able to power up and use some of that negative Speed Force energy to reverse basically what Daniel's done, to take in some of that energy and more or less basically take Daniel's energy and depower him and change everything back and reverse things back to where they were in the present timeline before things got screwed up. And then we get this moment where Elias is talking shit, and Barry just elbows him in the back of the head. He's like, shut up, Elias. But like I said, it is kind of quick. It's basically we get this big moment, and then Flash is like, alright, I got this, boom, 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 and we're done. Which also means because then we have to deal with more of the result of Barry and Patty, because there's this moment where Patty is having this anniversary party for her parents, and this is where Barry first gets to meet them and all that, and they explore more of their relationship, which we'll get more into in the next episode. But this is also the end of the run. Yes, this is the end of Manapul Buccellato's run. The next, we're still going to be in the New 52, but we're going to have a new writer in the next episode. But that does eventually end this run. But it's not fully over yet, because one of the things that does happen is we have a bit of an event to talk about. We don't have to go into the whole event, but I'll get into it somewhat. So this first issue, though, deals with Grodd. This is Grodd's villain issue. And one of the things that goes on is there is a whole big DC event that goes on, and it's called Forever Evil. So this is Forever Evil Rogues Rebellion, and during the Forever Evil event, there were a lot of tie-ins, which also was, again, my introduction to tie-ins. I'm like, ooh, what's a tie-in? And so what this is basically what the Rogues were doing during the Forever Evil event, because one of the things that happens here is in the main Forever Evil book itself, Captain Cold ends up joining that main book, because what goes on in the main Forever Evil book is not all the villains are keen about having the crime syndicate take over. Specifically, a lot of the headliner A-lister guys, Lex, Bizarro, Sinestro, and in that group is Captain Cold. So it's basically kind of cool. Basically, the story for Forever Evil is basically you get like evil Justice League versus like the main villains of the DC universe, and the main villains like Lex and all of them are basically like the good guys in the book, like Black Manta and all of them. It's a really, really cool event, and Start ends up joining them. And one of the things that's cool is that because since Start ends up joining them in the main book in this tie-in, one thing that does end up happening is Lisa sacrifices herself and sacrifices her astral form to pull Sam out of the Mirrorverse. So Sam is finally out of the Mirror Universe, and because of that, now she's basically on like full life support, no astral plane, and Cold more or less is gonna be like, all right, well, I'm gonna team with Lex to help them out. Sam, you're in charge of the Rogues to try and get everyone out of here to protect Lisa, because the cities end up being destroyed, and also the problem is that the Rogues are now on the run by the crime syndicate, because of course since the Rogues refuse to join the crime syndicate, now all the villains are basically after them, and they have like a bounty over their head. It's really cool. It's a really cool story. Where you get to see the Rogues go for like Gotham and Metropolis. That's one of the evil Justice League members, Power Ring, basically an opposite version of Hal Jordan, the afraid version of Hal Jordan. That's Deathstorm. But one of the more important things that happens here, happens in the main Forever Evil book, is I guess Jeff Johns, who wrote Forever Evil, was not really the biggest fan of what happened with the Rogues and giving them powers. So there is a moment here where Deathstorm basically more or less pulls the DNA strand out of Cold's body and basically takes away his powers. So yes, in Forever Evil, you get to see Cold with the gun again, which I'm all for that. I'm cool with that. I mean, I remember originally when I was first reading this, I hated that, but once I got to know more of the Rogues, I'm like, no, the Rogues should not have powers. But one of the things that I do love about this story, I think is cool, because again, I've always mentioned how much I love Mirror Master, because now with Start out of the book, Mirror Master leads the Rogues, and he's basically like the main character in this book, and it's really cool. And we get to see him like figure out how to be leader and getting everyone safe, taking out some of the Gotham villains, which is cool. So yeah, so this is more or less basically a tie into that Forever Evil event. And deals with the Rogues. Like, especially, like, if you're a fan of the Rogues, I highly, highly recommend this story. Even if you don't read Forever Evil, you can just read it on its own and know some stuff. Well, this is one of the big moments here, too. They get to meet the evil Johnny Quick, the crime syndicate version of Flash. But eventually, at one point, they do end up saving Lisa. Lisa gets her astral plane back. And also one other thing that they talk about too is Piper's here as well, because they do get into more of why Piper was in the Rogues for a bit and then decided not to be. Well, one of the things that's kind of cool that they mentioned is that he does come out to them, and you would think the Rogues are like, "Oh my God, you're gay. That's terrible. Like, get the fuck out." But they're basically just like, no, that's cool. That's fine. It's when they find out he's dating a cop, a.k.a. Director Singh, that's when the Rogues are like, yeah, no, we can't have that. That's weird. And he more or less is basically like, you know what, because I really don't want to rob banks and stuff. I'm out of here too, so see ya. So we get to see more of Piper's background in this. But yeah, it does end with this cool moment with all them talking about how they are the Rogues, and they are the Rogues of Central City, and they will always defend it, even when they they're not always going to defend it, but whenever they need to, they will. It's a really, really cool story. But anyway, let's get back to the Manapul Ami, and we'll finish that off. So, just to confirm something, too, so in Rogues Rebellion, the Rogues 23.2, that issue of the Villains Month run, that issue is collected in this Ami, and that basically acts as the prologue for Rogues Rebellion. The whole Rogues Rebellion event is not collected in this. It is collected in the Forever Evil Ami, however. But you do at least get the prologue in this Manapul run. But we also do get a really cool annual with Flash teaming up with Green Lantern. And we get to see in this new universe, in this new timeline, of how they first meet each other, which is pretty cool. Pretty cool story. Not going to get too much into it, but yeah, this basically explains how the two of them first meet. And then we get to the finale, the last issue in Manapul and Buccellato's run. And one of the reasons why I'm still to this day kind of annoyed that the ending of the reverse story got rushed, because what happened was, so that last issue of Reverse was issue 24 of The Flash. And again, DC was again having these like theme months where it's like, okay, everyone's got to do this for this issue. And issue 25, they had everyone have to make a tie-in to Batman Zero Year. I love Batman Zero Year. It's my favorite Batman story. I'm going to do a review on it eventually. Why does The Flash have to tie into that? Because it's basically a story where it is by Manapul and Buccellato. And one of the things that's cool about it is you get to see Barry as a hero before the lightning hits him. And so you get to see him in Gotham team up with Harley Bullock. Basically, all this is going on while the Blackout Zero Year is going on, because that was the whole point of all the stories. It was basically, what is all the DC characters' reaction to the Batman and the big Blackout and the Zero Year? Like, I don't know why everyone in the DC Universe had to give a crap about what Batman was doing, but at that time, Batman was basically God. Like, it was basically Batman was above all. So, and that's why I've always was kind of annoyed that the reverse, because I really feel like the reverse storyline could have used like one more issue to like wrap it up. And you could tell that it felt kind of rushed because issue 25 had to be this. And don't get me wrong, it's still a cool issue because we get to see Barry interact with Harley Bullock. This is where him and Iris first meet. And one of the things I like about this issue is that it ends up tying back into one of the original points from the beginning of the run, where Manuel actually tells Barry, like, oh, you gotta find someone worth fighting for. And he eventually does find that, where he does end up meeting Iris, which of course ultimately doesn't work out, but it will work out eventually. But this is one of their first meetings, and they get this great first kiss together. It's pretty cool. And also, I will say, one of the things I do like about this issue I think is cool is that I guess Manapul and Buccellato took the opportunity to be like, all right, well, we're leaving this, and then the next thing we're doing is we're actually writing Detective Comics. So they basically used this issue as kind of a way to set up their run in Detective Comics, which I thought was really cool and really smart that they did that. And check out that run of Detective Comics written by them. It's really cool. Plus, you get this amazing art that now you get to get it with Batman. I might do a review on that one day. And yeah, things end with him and Iris leaving each other. And one of the last lines that says it is, Barry's trying to catch his train to Central City, and Iris goes, you better go. You don't want to be late. See you around, Barry Allen. And that ends this Ami. And ends this run. So yeah, so that is the first half of the New 52 by the New 52 Flash by Francis Manapul and Brian Buccellato. This is the end of their run. The next episode, we're going to get into Robert Vendetti's run, and we're going to finish the New 52 era of the Flash. Unfortunately, though, so good news, bad news. The good news is that Robert Vendetti is getting an omnibus. The problem is that it's not out yet, so episode 11, we're going to have to use trades. So, sorry about that, but fortunately, that is the way it is. But anyway, guys, like, subscribe. Always subscribe, comment, give us feedback, and yeah, talk to you guys later from the Alvin Buds Cafe. Talk to you later. Bye.